I have always loved the steampunk aesthetic. I don't know when it started, but my guess is Bioshock Infinite. The flying city of Columbia wowed me when I first saw it, and despite my dislike for flying, I have always loved blimps and would like to fly in one, especially ones from Studio Ghibli films. Studio Ghibli has a lot of films with aspects of the steampunk genre sprinkled throughout, and that's one of the many reasons I love their movies. A staple of the steampunk aesthetic is the Victorian style of clothing people wear. I've always liked the designs, and they are always cool to see in whatever steampunk media you're viewing. The typical clothing you'll see is like suits, overalls, goggles for people working on various machinery. Women are often seen in corset dresses and jackets, and overall I just find all of the clothing in this genre to be so cool and interesting. Of course, there's a lot of crazy machines and automatons, and yes, they are all powered by steam. In a steampunk world, it's common to see piping everywhere, and it is integral to the world. It's also common to see valves releasing steam into the air, like Howl's Castle from Howl's Moving Castle. Now, I'm telling you all this because this is all mixed into the story of Levius by Haruhisa Nakata. Levius is a steampunk manga that is broken into two parts, Levius and Levius EST. The story is set in an alternate reality 1800s that is powered by steam, and I'm unsure if this is Earth or a different world, but anyway. The story follows Levius, a war orphan who rises through the ranks of the mechanical martial arts world and is pushed on by a dream that his mother will awake from her coma and watch him fight at the top of this sport. Also, Levius is a manga that is read left to right. Haruhisa Nakata is a phenomenal artist, and in this video I'll bring attention to the things I love about this story. Haruhisa Nakata also runs a YouTube channel where he often streams himself drawing panels for his current series. Right now you can find him streaming himself drawing Nightlight Hounds, his new manga that I'm yet to read. I'll link his channel in the description. Levius also has an anime that I actually watched before reading, and you can try it, but trust me, the manga is so much better. I will only be spoiling some of the story of Levius and won't be touching on too much of the story in Levius EST besides some characters and fights. Okay, now on to the video. Levius opens with a boy getting his mechanical arm worked on. The man working on his arm asks him to be honest if he's hurting him. The boy tells him he's fine and to keep working. The man says no need, he would have kept working anyway. And we get a cool shot of the city. I loved this manga the second I saw this panel, I don't know why. We then get the map of the world of Levius, which clearly shows it's far different from our world in terms of how the world looks. The boy then leaves after the man is finished tinkering with his arm. The man tells the boy that if he leaves now in winter, his arm will be in pain. The boy tells him he'll be fine. The man says if he loses, it will be bad for business. He hears the boy laugh, but the boy denies it. The man then asks where his match will be, before he finds it in the newspaper. We get another gorgeous double spread panel, and I love how everything is kind of out of focus except for the boy. I'd also like to quickly point out that this author draws physically and not digitally, which just makes his art even more impressive. He walks towards an elderly lady who greets him, and we get the boy's name, Levius. The lady makes a comment about the wind changing and the wind telling her things, which is odd. Levius asks her where Uncle Zack is. This woman is Levius's grandmother. His grandmother calls out to Zack, then talks about how lazy their cat has been since it got its mechanical leg. Levius doesn't comment, and his uncle appears. His uncle is sneezing from the dust in their garage. He asks Levius if he went to Bill's to get his maintenance done. Bill is the man from earlier, and Zack is Levius's uncle and trainer. As Levius is leaving, his grandmother makes another comment about a person named Douglas Drake, and how if he'd never been born, then civilization would be 100 years behind, and man and machine might have not fused. Zack says she's talking gibberish in her old age, and they drive off. Zack drops Levius off at a hospital. Levius is visiting his mother. We get an inner monologue from Zack, and we learn that Levius's mother is in a coma and doesn't do anything but lay dormant on a hospital bed. We then see Levius walk into his mother's room, who has all kinds of tubes around her. He grabs her hand and holds it to his forehead. The story cuts to Levius getting back in the car. His uncle wishes him luck with his match, and Levius thanks him. We now get a shot of the Colosseum and people lining up to get in, and now we see what the Colosseum looks like on the inside. It's packed with people looking down at a ring. Levius arrives with Bill and Zack. Bill comments on how packed it is and bets most of them are here to see Levius, especially the women. Zack and Bill talk while they get Levius ready for the fight. We then see Levius's opponent, and you can see the modifications all over his body. Bill mentions how fighters often do that when they are past their physical prime. His opponent's name is Malcolm Eden, and he used to be a high-ranked fighter when he was younger. Zack hands Levius more tea and then gives him some advice for the fight. We now cut to Levius standing in the ring. He is about to fight. The fight starts with Eden immediately kicking Levius. The fight goes back and forth with both fighters landing blows on each other. The fight is interrupted with Zack remembering a conversation he had with Levius' grandmother. She mentions how when cybernetic boxing started, people didn't like the idea that you could buy strength. She then goes off on another story about these twins in the Netherlands and how they were both born with a congenital heart defect. Their family was poor and had to pick which child would receive a mechanical heart, and how the family must have anguished over that decision. She then asks, which of the two do you suppose died first? She then says the answer is both. They died at the same time. The child without the mechanical heart was dying in the hospital, and the other child died in a train accident while going to visit his sibling. Zack then interrupts her, telling her that's the 4th time she's told this story. She tells him that's alright, she will keep telling it until the world notices. Machines can't have a heart, and they can't have talent. She says this and then mentions how God's will is absolute. That's what the little birds tell her. Levius' grandmother is certainly an interesting character. We cut back to the fight as Levius talks with Bill. The fight starts back up with Eden landing a punch. The crowd is enthralled by the bout, not looking away for a second as the fighters trade blows. Zack asks if Eden knocked the wind out of Levius, but both men couldn't tell. Eden then winds up for a massive punch while Zack grins. The crowd watches on as blood hits the floor. Levius has driven his arm straight through Eden's chest. Levius then begins beating Eden brutally, ripping his arm off and striking him everywhere, all with a plain expression on his face. Someone yells out that he's gone berserk, as he one-sidedly beats Eden. Zack and Bill are just casually watching this unfold, and Bill remarks that, this happens a lot, doesn't it? Levius' face still conveys zero emotion. Guards begin piling into the arena to stop Levius. They finally get him off Eden as Levius looks down on him, staring with far too calm of an expression. The crowd explodes with cheer as the people are on their feet from excitement. Zack walks Levius out of the arena as he gets yet another flashback to a chat with Levius' grandmother. Zack told her, he says he plans to start cybernetic boxing, referring to a young Levius. This town used to be a pretty sight, the grandma says. But the revolution and steam made it into a devil town. You can't even see the blue sky anymore. She then says that that boy has the same smell. Levius will become a devil, she says, and that it's no use protecting him because you can't change fate. That's what the past tells her. Just to preface, a lot of what she rambles about makes sense later in the story. If it sounds really random right now, it's well worth seeing just how it all comes together. The story cuts back to Levius walking off towards Bill. We learn that mechanical martial arts has a high fatality rate. People now call the sport the final cage, as we see Eden dead on the floor with all kinds of terrible injuries. That's the end of chapter 1, and I love how it shows that this sport isn't a regular sport. People can lose their lives in this ring, and this young man shoulders that pressure and thrives. Now, I will be talking about some of the things I find interesting in this manga, so if you don't want some spoilers for later chapters and characters, you should click off now and go read Levius. Mechanical martial arts is at the center of the story of Levius. There are 5 grades, and we only see fights from grades 3, 2, and 1. Grade 1 being the elite division, with only 13 fighters being in this grade, and they are known as the Grand 13. These fighters are represented by 13 massive statues that sit in the city. I love this display. It really does a great job of conveying just how powerful and destructive these fighters are, and how they are these larger-than-life characters in the world. Just to highlight the power and importance of these fighters, I'm going to explain Christopher Ted Elphinstone's importance in the final fight of Levius. So, Levius is fighting his promotion fight into Grade 1, and due to some events I won't spoil, there is a threat that 2,000 soldiers from a large military corporation called Amethyst will attack the crowd and hold them hostage if Levius wins. The government then hires Christopher, the 6th ranked fighter in Grade 1, for security, and Zack questions Bill how one man can be enough, and Bill assures him that he's more than enough. This is when Bill explains how Grade 1 fighters are far beyond the rest of humanity in combat ability. Then Bill explains that for the government to pay for a Grade 1 fighter to fight outside the ring, it would cost as much as a small nation's annual budget. So yeah, they quite literally rival armies. We then see a glimpse at just how strong they are. After Levius wins his bout, the head of Amethyst, Dr. Clown Jack Pudding, the main antagonist of Levius, threatens to attack the audience and asks Levius if he still wants to fight. And then this is when Ted appears. He smirks, saying, "I wager he does, because your weapons aren't going to show." This is when a guard informs the clown that their army has been completely destroyed. In this panel, we see just what took place, and it wasn't even close. In 11 seconds, Christopher attacked 8 locations 2,000 kilometers apart, killing 2,000 soldiers with incredible ease. We then see what Christopher looks like, with this massive mechanical creature attached to his back. He controls all the arms and components on his back. and his mods are all covered in blood. He attacks the clown, asking why he doesn't take the Grand 13 seriously. When I first read this part, I was super surprised, like none of the fighters we've seen to this point have shown power anywhere near this, and it perfectly shows the power of the Grand 13. They are literally one-man armies and should be treated as such. This offers us a sneak peek into the world Levius enters after winning his promotion match into Grade 1. A really unique aspect to mechanical martial arts is the use of Star Water. Star Water was discovered by Douglas Drake, the man who revolutionized the world. He discovered an aquifer called Agartha and produced a special liquid from the ancient water and called it Star Water. Bill then teaches this to Zack and a character named AJ. He explains that Star Water has a special quality. Bill then cuts his hand and lets the blood drop into a beaker of Star Water. Steam explodes from the beaker. The Star Water produces a lot more steam than regular water and doesn't need to be heated, but this isn't the only unique quality of Star Water. Bill begins manipulating the steam as he wishes, moving it around the room with the wave of his hand. He explains that not only can Star Water produce large amounts of steam, but it can be manipulated from large distances. Bill then explains that if the steam was in a glove, it could be manipulated as a hand, and that's the basic principle behind cyborgs. He then explains that the machinery across the world and the prosthetics used by the fighters efficiently use the steam to control them, and the parts are moved by the user's will. Blood from the heart pumps directly into the Star Water collection on the prosthetic, and then from there they can manipulate it with their mind, but it's not as easy as moving an actual arm. Levius found it hard initially because he uses older technology, but he can work his arm on about a milk bottle's worth of Star Water for a month. The Star Water is used in very cool and unique ways in fights, like compressed steam, which is a buildup of steam and moisture released all at once in a powerful shockwave, or the fighters morphing their steam into creepy forms that can directly attack their opponents. Watching how the Grade 1 fighters use their steam is amazing, and seeing the unique things they do with their steam was always enjoyable to watch and adds another layer to the fights. The art in Levius is amazing, and I think it is super unique. I love how the author draws facial expressions. It's common in Levius to get a panel with no dialogue, but everything that needs to be conveyed is perfectly shown in their facial expressions. Whether someone is quietly angry like AJ in this scene, or excited like Levius when he hears that he will get a title fight against the rank 1 fighter. It's all clearly shown to us and highlights the tone and emotions the characters are experiencing. The scenes of rage are also shown uniquely, with the enraged character becoming a black scratched out silhouette. Like in this scene, AJ lost her memories after her fight with Levius, but everyone is telling her it was from a car crash. She knows everyone is lying to her and becomes enraged, demanding to know exactly what happened, and we get these images that are only stopped when she remembers Levius and demands to see him. I'm sorry if that scene seems confusing, I just really don't want to spoil the previous arcs before that, because this story is something you really should read if you're interested in it. Another thing I always liked seeing was all the piping and technology drawn in certain scenes, whether it's Levius's arm or the pipes and tubes used in medical scenes. Like when a character named Hugo is mortally injured and his body has been segmented into various parts and is being kept alive by all kinds of tubes and futuristic medical equipment and techniques. It's really horrific to see. I've already touched on the fights, but they are so hype and there's so many amazing moments that happen during them. Like Levius snapping during his fight with the rank 1 fighter Kingsley, or Natalia vs Balthus. I love how the author uses the steam that's all around the arena to convey the movement, like when Natalia slams Balthus to the floor. You can see the steam kick up from the force of the throw. It's touches like this that make the fight so enjoyable to read. The various shots of the world give snippets of what daily life might look like, with blimps moving throughout the city or travelling across the ocean, and fairs happening outside the arenas. I wish we got to see more architecture, but what we do get to see is nice. I like the interior of the church we see Levius visit when he attends a funeral, but I wish we got more. As you can tell, I really like this series, and in a future video I will dive deeper into the story and characters, but for this one I want to give you all a chance to go and read this story. It certainly has some twists and turns that I'd like to show in the future. If you would like a full story breakdown, you can let me know in the comments. Well, that's it for this video. Please go and check this manga out and let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!